Don't call the doctor, Vincent, Esther whispered, clutching her stomach. I'm pregnant. I smiled, not out of joy but because I already knew who the real father was. That night at our family dinner, I pressed play on a single audio recording that would turn love into silence, loyalty into chaos, and my wife's confidence into pure terror. Viewers, what would you do if the person you loved most lied about carrying your child? Would you forgive, or would you finish the story your own way? Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share interesting story to family and friends. My name is Vincent Otobo and I'm a civil engineer living in Lagos, Nigeria, a city that never sleeps, where everyone's chasing something: money, power, or love. I used to think I had found the last one. Her name was Esther. 3 years ago, I married her in a small church on the island. She wore a cream gown that shimmered like dawn light, and when she smiled at me, I thought I'd finally outrun my past. I'd been cheated on once before, by a woman I nearly proposed to. That betrayal tore a hole in me, one I promised myself I'd never reopen. But love makes fools of even the cautious. Esther was a nurse, calm, kind, always smelling faintly of antiseptic and vanilla lotion. She used to bring me dinner at work sites, teasing me about how I'd forget to eat once I got caught up in blueprints. We were happy. Or maybe I was just blind. The first cracks appeared quietly. Missed calls. Late-night shifts that stretched till morning. The sound of her phone vibrating under the pillow while she slept beside me. I told myself she was tired, overworked. Nurses do long hours, I reminded myself. But deep down, something in my chest began to tighten, like a silent alarm I was too afraid to acknowledge. One morning as I prepared for work, I noticed her perfume smelled different. Not the vanilla she always wore, but something musky, foreign. When I asked, she laughed it off. It's just a sample from the hospital pharmacy. Why are you smelling me like a customs officer? We laughed together, but it didn't reach her eyes. That was the first time I realized laughter could sound like defense. Over the next few weeks, I started keeping notes in my head. Nights she came home late, the excuses she gave, the time she claimed her battery died. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. See, I grew up watching my father lose everything after my mother's affair. He confronted her too early without proof, and she twisted the story until he was the villain. I learned from his mistake. Emotion without evidence is suicide. So I stayed calm, observant, waiting, until that text came one afternoon. We need to talk tonight. It was simple, harmless on the surface. But I'd been married long enough to know that when a woman says, "We need to talk," something has already gone wrong. The conversation is just a formality. I stared at her message, feeling that same cold stillness I remembered from my father's breakdown. The one that comes right before something beautiful collapses. That night she came home. Her steps were slow. Her eyes were red. And when she finally spoke, her voice trembled as if her own secret was trying to escape before she could control it. "Vincent," she said quietly, "don't call the doctor. I'm pregnant." The words cut through me. But I didn't flinch. Because I already knew. For a second I thought I didn't hear her right. The generator outside hummed faintly, and her words seemed to float in that hum, unreal, like a dream I was supposed to wake up from. "Don't call the doctor," she repeated, her voice firmer this time. "I'm pregnant." I stared at her, not blinking, not breathing. Esther had always been composed, but right now her hands were trembling. She stood in the middle of our living room, still in her nursing scrubs, her eyes darting everywhere except at me. I leaned back on the couch slowly, forcing a smile. "You confirmed it yourself?" She nodded quickly, her voice catching. "Yes. I ran the test myself at the hospital." Her answer was too rehearsed, too fast. Nurses don't usually run their own pregnancy tests. Not without someone noticing, not without records. But I didn't challenge her. Not yet. Instead, I smiled wider, the kind of smile that hides 1,000 calculations. "That's great news, Esther. Congratulations." Her face twisted in confusion, like she didn't expect me to react calmly. Maybe she was waiting for me to ask questions. Maybe she wanted me to panic. But silence has power. Silence makes liars uncomfortable. She forced a weak smile. "Thank you. I was scared you'd be upset." "Upset? Why would I be upset?" I replied, my tone even. "You're my wife." She exhaled in relief, but her body betrayed her. Her shoulders stayed stiff. Her hands kept clutching the hem of her blouse. She couldn't meet my eyes for more than 2 seconds. And that's when I knew she wasn't scared I'd be angry. She was scared I'd know. I excused myself to the kitchen under the pretense of needing water. When I turned my back to her, my smile dropped. My hand gripped the countertop, knuckles white. I stared at the tiled floor, remembering the small GPS tracker I had installed in her car 2 months ago, the same tracker that had led me to a certain apartment in Lekki on 3 separate nights. I remembered sitting in my car, rain beating the windshield, watching her step out of that apartment with another man. The way he tucked her hair behind her ear. The way she smiled, that soft, unguarded smile she used to give me. The man's name was Daniel, one of her colleagues. A doctor. I'd met him once at a staff dinner. He'd called me brother, shook my hand, told me how lucky I was to have a woman like Esther. I didn't know then that he was the one helping her forget me. I came back to the living room and sat beside her. She looked at me nervously as if waiting for an outburst. Instead, I reached for her hand and said, "We should tell your family. They'll be happy." Her eyes widened in panic. "No. Not yet, please." "Why not?" I asked softly, though my heart was pounding. "I just want to be sure first," she muttered. "Then we'll go to a doctor tomorrow," I said, watching her flinch at the word doctor. Her eyes darted up. "No, I told you don't call the doctor. I already confirmed it." I smiled again, a slow, knowing smile. "I know, Esther." For a brief second, her face went pale. What do you mean you know?" But I didn't answer. I stood up, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Get some rest." She didn't know that I wasn't just playing along. I was watching her every move, waiting for her to make a mistake. And that mistake would come sooner than she expected. Please subscribe. The night she told me she was pregnant, I barely slept. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, counting the slow rotations of the fan. Her breathing was calm, too calm, like someone who'd rehearsed a lie until it felt like truth. Every few minutes she turned, mumbling in her sleep. Once she whispered a name. It wasn't mine. I kept my eyes open until dawn. When morning came, I slipped out of bed quietly, walked to my study, and opened my laptop. The GPS tracking app was still installed, a small red dot blinking softly on the screen. Her car was parked outside our home now, but I scrolled back through the logs. I'd been tracking her movements for almost 2 months, ever since her double shifts started lining up a little too perfectly with my weekends out of town. I still remember the first night I suspected her. She'd called around 10 p.m., saying a patient had gone into emergency labor and she'd be stuck all night. Her voice was shaky, which I mistook for exhaustion. But something told me to check the tracker the next morning. Her car wasn't at the hospital. It was parked at an address in Lekki Phase 1, a luxury apartment complex. I thought maybe she'd gone to a friend's place, or maybe the GPS was glitching. I told myself anything that helped me sleep. But when it happened again the following Friday and again the week after that, the same location, the same late-night hours, I knew it wasn't coincidence. That's when I decided to follow her. It was raining heavily that night, the kind of Lagos rain that turns the streets into rivers and makes the city lights blur like tears. I parked 2 blocks away from the building and waited. Around 11:30, I saw her car pull up. She stepped out, clutching her umbrella, and ran toward the gate. A tall man in scrubs was waiting there. He took her umbrella, laughed at something she said, then pulled her into an embrace. I didn't need to see his face clearly. I already knew who it was. Daniel. I remember gripping the steering wheel until my palms hurt. Every instinct screamed at me to storm in, to drag her out, to expose them both. But another voice whispered, "Not yet. Don't act without proof." That voice sounded a lot like my father's. He'd once told me, "Never confront a liar empty-handed. They'll turn your truth into madness." He learned that the hard way, when my mother cheated on him with a church elder, and the whole neighborhood ended up pitying her. I watched my father crumble because he shouted first and proved later. I promised myself I'd never repeat that mistake. So I took out my phone, zoomed in through the windshield, and snapped a photo, time-stamped, clear enough to ruin a reputation. Then another as they disappeared into the apartment. Back in the present, sitting in my study with that same photo glowing on the screen, I realized something. She was 3 months pregnant now. The first time she stayed overnight at that apartment was just under 3 months ago. Coincidence? Maybe. But I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I heard footsteps behind me, Esther, still in her nightgown, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early," she said softly. "Yeah," I replied, shutting the laptop before she could see the screen. "Just checking work emails." She walked over, kissed my cheek, and smiled that sweet, rehearsed smile. "You work too hard, Vincent." I smiled back. "You have no idea." In that moment I decided. I wouldn't just catch her. I'd let her reveal herself, piece by piece, until the truth burned its way out in front of everyone. Rain has a way of making everything feel cinematic, the kind of scene where silence speaks louder than words. That night, the Lagos sky opened up again, and thunder rolled over the city like it had unfinished business. I sat in my car across from the Lekki apartment complex, engine off, wipers silent, watching the entrance through streaks of rain on the windshield. It had been a week since Esther told me she was pregnant, and she'd been playing her role perfectly, cooking my favorite meals, calling me baby again, pretending everything was fine. But her phone habits gave her away. She'd go to the bathroom with it, keep it face down, delete her call logs. She was careful but not careful enough. The tracker pinged again tonight. Same location. Same lie. I watched the time crawl past 10:45 p.m., my fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel. My headlights were off, but every flash of lightning illuminated the gate, the same silver gate I'd stared at for weeks. Then like clockwork, a car pulled up. Her car. Esther stepped out, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie, casual, unassuming like a woman just running errands. But I knew where she was going. She walked to the gate, umbrella barely covering her. A man appeared from inside, already waiting. He reached out, took her umbrella and kissed her cheek. Even from a distance I could recognize that tall frame and confident stride. Daniel. I felt my pulse hammer in my throat. Every drop of rain outside echoed against my chest. I took my phone, aimed it at them through the blurry windshield and zoomed in. 1 click. 2. 3. Proof layered upon proof. And then, just as they disappeared into the building, something in me snapped, not from anger but from a strange, cold curiosity. I wanted to see the world she'd built without me. So I stepped out of the car. The rain soaked through my shirt instantly, cold and merciless. My shoes splashed in puddles as I walked toward the building. I kept my hood low, my steps quiet. The gatekeeper was asleep in his booth, a small blessing from fate. I slipped past the gate and into the compound, my heart pounding louder than the rain. The apartment lights on the 3rd floor were on. Through the curtains I could see silhouettes, Esther's frame, Daniel's shadow close behind. They moved slowly, intimately, like two people who'd long stopped pretending guilt. I stood there in the rain, watching, breathing heavily, the taste of betrayal thick in my mouth. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from her. Sorry love. Got called for an emergency night shift. Don't wait up. I laughed quietly, though it sounded more like a growl. I texted back one word, okay. I looked up again at the window, then raised my phone one more time and took another photo, both of them visible through the curtains. That single image, I knew, could destroy everything she tried to hide. But I wasn't ready to destroy it yet. No, I wanted her to feel safe first, safe enough to expose herself completely. As I walked back to my car, thunder cracked again, echoing over the flooded street. I sat behind the wheel, drenched, trembling, not from cold but from the strange calm that comes right before revenge. And somewhere between one flash of lightning and the next, I whispered to myself, not yet, Esther. Not yet. Revenge isn't an explosion, it's a construction project. You build it layer by layer, quietly, with precision. That week, I became an architect again, not of bridges or buildings but of downfall. After that night in the rain, something inside me shifted. I stopped asking questions. I stopped reacting. I let Esther believe she was safe. If she wanted to lie, I would give her all the room she needed to build her own stage. Because the higher she climbed, the harder the fall would be. She began calling me sweetheart, again, cooking my favorite egusi soup, humming while she did the dishes. Every gesture felt like theater, like watching a performance I'd already read the script for. But I played my role perfectly too. I smiled when she smiled. I kissed her forehead. I even rubbed her stomach when she mentioned the pregnancy. What she didn't know was that I had already started documenting everything. Late one night, after she'd fallen asleep, I took her phone from under her pillow. My hands were steady, no shaking, no hesitation. Her screen was locked, but Esther was predictable. She used her birth year for everything. 1989. I entered it and it opened. The first message that caught my eye was from Daniel. It was short but it was enough. I can't stop thinking about last night. You're all I want, even if it's wrong. My throat tightened. I scrolled further. Photos, late-night voice notes, plans to meet at the same apartment. She'd even saved his name as Dr. K. Work. Subtle but not enough. I sent every message, every photo, every call log to a private email I'd created under a fake name. Then I downloaded a few of their voice notes and transferred them to a hidden folder on my computer. One of them stopped me cold. Daniel, what if he finds out it's not his baby? Esther, he won't. I'll handle it. I know what I'm doing. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a victim. I felt awake. The next morning, over breakfast, I watched her stir her tea and chat about redecorating the baby's room. Her voice was light, careless, and I realized she had no idea I was sitting across from her with her entire double life in my inbox. I nodded, smiled, even kissed her hand. Inside, I was already building the plan. I spent the following week putting the final pieces together. Screenshots, timestamps, photos from the apartment, and a copy of her voice recordings. I placed them in a brown envelope and labeled it, "For my lawyer." It sat hidden behind a framed photo of our wedding, her smiling in white, me holding her hand like it meant forever. But I wasn't done yet. 2 days later, as she got ready for work, something slipped from her handbag, a pregnancy test wrapper. I picked it up when she wasn't looking. The date printed on it caught my eye. 3 weeks before our last time together. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at the test, then at the woman tying her hair in front of the mirror, humming softly, oblivious. That was when I realized, she wasn't just unfaithful. She was certain I'd never find out. And that certainty would be her undoing. Please subscribe. I waited for the perfect moment to strike. Revenge, I've learned, isn't about timing, it's about patience. The right humiliation only works when the target believes they're untouchable. When Esther hit 6 weeks into her pregnancy, her mother called to congratulate me. She said, "Vincent, you've made our daughter so happy. We should have a small family dinner to celebrate the baby." I almost laughed. The irony was too good to ignore. A dinner, with both families, food, smiles, and a toast to the lie growing inside her. It was divine symmetry. I agreed immediately. "Of course, Mama. I'll host it." That night, when I told Esther, she hesitated, her fork frozen midair. "A dinner? Are you sure it's necessary this early? Why not?" I asked gently. "It's good news." Her smile faltered for half a second before returning. "Sure, if you want to." She didn't know that by agreeing she'd sealed her fate. The next few days I planned everything meticulously, the menu, the wine, even the seating arrangement. I made sure Daniel would be there too. I called him myself, pretending to be the proud husband inviting his wife's colleagues. "You've been such a good friend to Esther," I said. "You should join us." He hesitated, then laughed awkwardly. "Oh, that's thoughtful, Vincent. Sure, I'll be there." Perfect. The night of the dinner, the house was glowing with warm light. Esther's mother brought jollof rice, her sister arrived with gifts, and my younger brother helped me pour wine. The air smelled of pepper soup and fake happiness. Esther looked radiant, dressed in a soft blue gown, her face glowing, not from love but from relief. She thought she'd won. I watched her laugh and chat, her hand resting over her stomach like a badge of honor. Everyone toasted her. Even Daniel, sitting quietly at the far end of the table, managed a polite smile. He was nervous, I could see it in how he kept adjusting his wristwatch, his eyes darting anywhere but mine. Halfway through the meal I stood up. "Excuse me, everyone," I said calmly, raising my glass. "Before we continue, there's something I'd like to share. A small surprise for my wife." Esther looked up, smiling nervously. "Vincent, what's this about?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. The room fell silent as I pressed play. Her voice filled the room. "Daniel, I'm scared. What if he finds out it's your baby?" The sound of her own confession froze her in place. Her fork clattered to the floor. The color drained from her face. Her mother gasped. Across the table, Daniel's hand went limp around his glass. He looked like a man watching his life fall apart in slow motion. Esther stammered, "Vincent, please stop this." But I wasn't done. I reached behind me and placed the brown envelope on the table. "These are copies of the messages, photos, and call logs. And before anyone says this could be fake, here's the hospital timestamp showing when you stayed at Daniel's apartment. The same week you conceived." The room erupted in whispers, gasps, silence, then more silence. I leaned forward, my voice steady, almost gentle. "Don't worry, Esther. I already called the doctor." Her eyes snapped up, terrified. "What?" I smiled faintly. "Daniel's doctor. The hospital board wanted to thank me for helping them with their internal investigation." The next sound that came from Daniel wasn't a word, it was a breath caught in his throat. The color drained from his face faster than the wine left in his glass. "What are you talking about?" he managed to whisper. I tilted my head, pretending confusion. "You didn't tell her, did you? About your little issue at work?" Esther looked between us, her voice trembling. "What issue?" I let the silence stretch, then set my phone down and played a short audio recording. It was of a conversation between me and one of the hospital administrators. "Administrator, Mr. Otobo, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Dr. Daniel has been under review for falsifying paternity test results for his patients. I just thought it was time the truth came out. Esther's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. Vincent, you don't understand? Oh, I understand perfectly, I cut in. You two built this lie together and you thought you'd get away with it. But Daniel, my friend, when you tamper with hospital records, it eventually catches up. The room was dead quiet except for the rain tapping against the windows. Esther's mother broke the silence. Esther, is this true? Esther's lips trembled. Mummy, Her voice broke into sobs. She dropped to her knees, hands clutching her belly, begging me to stop. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, the kind of calm that comes when the storm inside you has already passed. Esther, I said softly, you didn't just betray me. You made me doubt myself, my worth, my sanity. You thought my kindness made me blind. But I saw everything. She sobbed harder. Please, Vincent, don't do this here. Not in front of my family. I knelt down to her level, my voice low enough for only her to hear. That's exactly why I'm doing it here. Because secrets rot in the dark. It's time yours saw the light. When I stood back up, Daniel was gone. He'd slipped out during the chaos, like a coward fleeing a fire he'd started. Esther's mother kept whispering prayers under her breath. Her sister looked at me like I was both monster and martyr. I finished my wine slowly, savoring the taste of quiet justice. Then I looked around and said, thank you all for coming. Dinner's over. And just like that, I walked away, leaving Esther crying on the floor, surrounded by the family that once called me son. Please subscribe. By the time I got home that night, the city was asleep. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened under the streetlights. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in the same clothes, the sound of her crying replaying in my mind. I wasn't sure if I felt satisfaction or emptiness, maybe both. Revenge has a strange aftertaste. It fills you up then leaves you hollow. But the night wasn't done with me. My phone buzzed. An email notification. From an address I didn't recognize. Subject, about Dr. Daniel. I opened it. Inside was a message from a woman named Kemi, Daniel's ex-wife. Mr. Otobo, I heard what happened tonight. You did the right thing. But you should know, Esther isn't the first. Daniel's been manipulating nurses for years, altering paternity tests, preying on women who thought they were safe. You exposed him, but you only saw the surface. My blood went cold. I read it twice, then 3 times. The realization hit me like a train. Esther wasn't just unfaithful. She'd fallen for a predator who'd made her believe she was special, that she could outsmart her husband, that she could build a secret life without consequence. And the baby. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if she didn't even know whether it was his or mine? What if I just destroyed her, and the child, based on something Daniel had manipulated too? No. I shook the thought away. The test date, the messages, the calls, it all matched. I couldn't afford sympathy now. She made her choices. I closed the laptop, walked to the mirror and studied my reflection. My eyes looked older, harder. The man staring back wasn't the same one who once built bridges to bring people together. He was someone who'd learned how to burn them when needed. But just as I began to feel that familiar numbness return, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from an unknown number. You think this is over, Vincent? The message was followed by a photo, a blurred image of me sitting in my car outside Daniel's apartment weeks ago. Someone had been watching me. The following days were chaos. News spread fast, the dinner, the affair, the recording. Within a week, Daniel was suspended from the hospital pending investigation. Esther moved out quietly, leaving a single box of her things behind. My lawyer filed for divorce. There was no fight, she didn't even contest it. Maybe guilt had drained the strength from her, or maybe she knew the evidence was ironclad. People kept asking me if I was okay. My brother said I should take time off work. My boss told me to heal. But I didn't want to heal. I wanted silence, the kind that lets you hear yourself again. One morning, as I packed the last of her belongings into a box, I found her wedding ring on the counter. Next to it was a folded note. I didn't mean to fall out of love. Just happened. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times, but the words didn't hurt like they should have. They felt inevitable. I took the ring and dropped it into the box. Then I taped it shut and wrote memories across the top. As I carried it out, I remembered something my mother once told me before she died. When truth hurts, it's not poison, it's surgery. She was right. The pain wasn't killing me, it was cutting something toxic out of my life. That night I drove to the beach. The waves were violent, crashing against the rocks like they wanted to break free. I sat there for hours, the salty wind biting at my face, thinking about everything, how love turns to blindness, how trust turns to ammunition. When I finally stood up, I felt lighter. Not happy, not healed, but free. It's been 3 months since that night. People say time heals, but it doesn't, it only distances. You stop bleeding, but the scars remind you where you were cut. I've moved into a new apartment, smaller, quieter, mine. Sometimes I catch myself glancing at the empty side of the bed, expecting to hear Esther's laugh, but it's just the wind through the curtains. I've learned something about revenge. It doesn't bring peace. It just restores balance. And maybe that's all it was ever supposed to do. Last week, a journalist reached out, said they were writing about Daniel's suspension and wanted my statement. I declined. Some stories don't need retelling, they just need to end. But last night as I scrolled through my phone, I saw a new message in my inbox. From Kemi, Daniel's ex-wife. Subject, we need to talk. About Esther. I froze. My thumb hovered over the message. Part of me wanted to delete it, to close that chapter forever. But another part, the same quiet voice that once warned me something was wrong, whispered, open it. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I stepped out onto the balcony. The Lagos skyline glittered beneath me, alive, chaotic, indifferent. I lit a cigarette, took a slow drag, and smiled faintly at the city that had seen it all. Maybe some stories don't end, they evolve. Maybe there are still truths hiding in the ashes. The night breeze brushed against my face. I whispered to no one in particular, "You think it's over, Esther?" A faint smile tugged at my lips. Not yet. Fade to black. Subscribe, like, comment, and share this interesting story to family and friends.